So, what we're going to go over today, kind of dispense with introductions. I'm going to give just a quick overview of what the form-based code is, kind of generally how it operates, maybe for those of you who haven't seen one of these presentations before. Then we're going to talk really about two topics primarily today. One is how this code is going to be administered once it's adopted. And secondly, we're going to talk a little bit about the standards for the public realm, things like how the buildings interface with the streets and sidewalks, that sort of thing. And then I'll quickly tell you what the schedule is going forward. Okay? All right, and again, if you can just hold your questions to the end, in courtesy of those who need to scoot out within the hour, that would be great. So what is a form-based code? Let me ask, how many of you have been to, or maybe have not been to one of these presentations before? A couple. Okay, well, thank you for coming. Glad you're here. The form-based code is really, it's a tool that helps the city government regulate what gets developed on any particular piece of property. And one of the issues with the current ordinance we're working under is that it's kind of a one-size-fits-all type of code. And as you know, if you look across the city, we have some very urban, densely developed areas like our downtown, and we have some pretty rural areas in other parts of the city. And our current code doesn't really allow you to specialize depending on the character of the area. And so that's one of the reasons we're doing this. We want a code that's going to allow us to do urban development in the urban area. Currently we have 20-something zones in our current zoning ordinance, and most all of them are geared to suburban development, where you have very deep setbacks, the buildings push way back from the street, parking in front, those sorts of things. All the uses are separated, and that's not what downtown looks like. Unfortunately, we only have about four zones, in our current code that deal with urban development, and they have some issues themselves. So we're hoping that this new form-based code will allow us to do much better development in the downtown area. Why do we need this? Well, that's one reason. The current code doesn't work very well. Also, we've had, over the years, a lot of planning and visioning sessions, public meetings, where some of you have come and expressed what you want to see happen in the downtown area in years to come. And without exception, people always say, we want it to be very walkable, we want it to be urban, we want a mix of uses, we want it to be safe and attractive, all those sorts of things. And again, unfortunately, the current zoning ordinance that we're using really doesn't allow us to really promote that vision very well. It's kind of out of date and has needed an overhaul for a long time. So those are some of the reasons we're doing this. Where is it going to be applied? This is a map that shows the boundary. It's probably a little hard to see from where you're sitting, but we have all the maps upstairs. You are all welcome to come up there and take a closer look at them after this presentation. But basically it will be applied to the North Shore area, to the riverfront, to the city center or central business district, to the M.L. King neighborhood, and to the Southside neighborhoods. So how is this different from what we have right now? Well, first of all, even though it has kind of a strange name, form-based code, it's just zoning. It's just a slightly different and improved kind of zoning. So don't let the name throw you off too much. The current zoning we have is really focused about 80% on the use of the land, or the use that happens inside the buildings, and only about 20% on the form, the physical form of the building, like how tall the buildings can be, how far they sit back from the street, those sorts of things. A form-based code just basically flips that percentage, and it focuses more on the physical form of the building, getting the scale and the character of the buildings right. It still focuses on land use, but to a somewhat lesser extent, and it's a little more flexible in terms of land use. And if you think about it, that makes a lot more sense for an urban area in particular. We have buildings downtown that are over 100 years old, and the uses inside those buildings has changed continuously over the decades. And our current zoning ordinance makes that difficult to work with. This new form-based code is going to be much more flexible in terms of the types of uses you can have in the buildings. But we want to get the buildings themselves right to start with, because hopefully they're going to be with us a long time. But again, remember, it's just zoning, even though we gave it a strange name. Okay, when we started this, we started out by looking at some key urban principles or values that we felt this code needed to promote. And I'm just going to quickly go through some of these, because as we've been editing and revising and updating this code, we've always gone back to these principles and asked ourselves, is this particular item really supporting one or more of these principles? And we keep trying to double check that. So first of all, we want this code to help us maintain a safe, walkable, attractive urban environment, especially at the street level, because that's really where people experience the downtown. It's whether they're walking or driving, it's mostly at the street level. Second, we want to maximize opportunity for new development and for redevelopment, especially in the core of downtown, where your taller buildings are, and then maybe gradually tapering off a little bit as you get away from the core. But we want to see new development and redevelopment occur in these areas. We also want to provide a diversity of housing options. Our population is growing, and our population is diversifying, especially a lot of the millennials, the younger generation coming along, which is a huge chunk of our population in the United States. A lot of those folks are opting to live in downtown environments where they're close to theaters and stores and their work and that sort of thing. And we need to provide more housing options for them as well as other folks. Some people like myself who want to retire in several years perhaps and maybe live closer to downtown. We also want development that supports things like transit services, grocery stores, drugstores, the types of things that people keep telling us they want to see more of in the downtown. Everybody wants the shuttle to come to their front door. Well, unless we fill in a lot of those vacant lots and big empty surface parking lots, we're never going to get there. So we want a code that helps us promote that type of development. So those are some reasons I think that you want to kind of promote more development, maybe some taller buildings in certain places. There are always also some reasons to temper that a little bit, and this page gets to some of those, I think. We have some existing single-family residential neighborhoods within this downtown area, and those folks are very protective of that scale and character of development. They want to protect that. They don't want a 6-story commercial building right next to their single-family home. I think everybody would understand that. So we're trying to be very sensitive to that and make sure that we protect those existing single-family areas as they are, but also any development that might occur right next to those areas to make sure that it's in scale with them and doesn't overwhelm them. Similar with our historic districts, we have a number of national historic districts in the downtown area. Main and Market is one, the M.L. King District is another. And our consultants, especially the economists on our consulting team, told us that you want to be careful not to overzone those areas. If keeping those old historic buildings that are usually primarily 2, 3, maybe 4 stories tall, if it's important to this community to hang on to those, which people have told us it is, then you don't want to zone them for an 8 to 10 story building, because that's going to put pressure on those properties to be torn down and get redeveloped. So we've tried to be sensitive to that within those historic districts. We also have a beautiful riverfront here. So we want to try and balance development with some conservation of open space along our riverfront. Obviously, a lot of people like to live near the riverfront. We want to have restaurants and shops and things near the riverfront, but we also want to preserve some open space for recreation and festivals and things along the river. So we're trying to find a good balance between those two. We have hills that we're trying to be cognizant of, and a lot of folks have told us they don't want to see really tall buildings on top of the hills, so we've tried to again balance some of that. And then lastly, we have a number of plans that folks like you have been involved in over the years. They've actually been adopted by the city council, and so we're trying to make sure that what's being proposed conforms to those adopted plans. So again, each time we've gone through this draft code, we've tried to ask ourselves, is what we're looking at helping support these principles? Okay, so let me jump into how this code is going to be administered. First of all, it's pretty similar to what we're doing now. We haven't made a lot of major changes in terms of the process, a few, but not major ones. So one of the first questions we hear is, will this apply to me? Well, if you are building a new building, or if you are expanding an existing building, actually building a physical expansion of that building, yes, this will apply to you. If all you're doing is an interior renovation and you're not touching the outside of the building, this code will not apply to you. If all you're doing is routine maintenance, maybe you're replacing the shingles on your house, or you're repairing the roof on top of your commercial building, or you're just replacing windows with basically the same type of windows, those sorts of things, this will not apply to you. So if you have an existing structure and you're not doing anything that really impacts the exterior of the building, this does not apply to you. Again, this really only applies when you have a new building or an addition to a building, or some kind of change to the building that really makes the exterior of the building look significantly different. Okay. So assuming this applies to you, and say you're wanting to build a new building, how is this process going to work? The first thing we want to do is have people come in and set up what we're calling a project consultation, where you will just come in, meet with the city's land development staff. They'll go over the requirements with you. They'll hopefully point out any potential issues they might see. They might suggest some modifications to your project based on what you're showing them and what's in this code. If you're doing a big project, they might recommend something like a parking study or something to see what the traffic impacts will be, those sorts of things. If any of you are already doing development and you've been to one of the city's pre-submittal meetings, that's basically what this is. In fact, if you go to a pre-submittal meeting, that will suffice for this project consultation. So it's not a big change from what we have right now. Second thing is then to submit your application. Once you've gone through this consultation, you turn in your site plan drawings, your building elevation drawings. They don't have to be quite as detailed and refined as the ones you see up here. Those are just ones I happen to find on the internet. But submit those, and then the staff will start reviewing your application. Now, you have to have all the drawings turned into them before they can start doing that. They need enough information to make a decision and get back to you. A couple notes too, if you're doing just a single family dwelling, just one individual house, or even a duplex, two-family dwelling, you don't have to go through all the technical review and that sort of thing, building codes, as you do with a larger building, maybe an apartment building or a commercial building. And again, that's the way it works today. If you're building a single family home, you get through a lot quicker and easier. You still have to comply with the codes, including building codes as always, but you don't have to go through quite as much of a process. And then finally, the staff reviews your application. Now, this is not an interrogation with, bright lights in your eyes behind a one-way mirror or anything. You won't meet Arnold Schwarzenegger, I don't think, in this building. But again, the staff's going to sit down, they're going to look at what you've turned in, and they're going to make a decision based on the standards in this code. They will notify you in writing if your application is approved or if it's denied. And if it's denied, they're going to tell you in writing why. They're going to give you specifics. It didn't meet this particular aspect of the code. And then, you can go back and change that and resubmit if you choose to do that. One thing I want to point out too, where this is going to be a little different than our current zoning ordinance, and in a very good way, is if you pick up our current zoning ordinance today, it is pages and pages and pages of text. Sometimes it's very confusing text, a lot of legal words and planning jargon in it. I think there's one diagram in the whole zoning ordinance. This one is mostly diagrams. So this is what one of the pages out of the new code looks like. You'll have some very simple text. It's like your setback is X, your building height is Y. Excuse me. And then you'll also have some illustrative diagrams that help explain all of those things. So we think it's going to be a lot easier for you to use, for one thing. So let's assume that you're building a new building, and maybe there's something you're wanting to do that doesn't quite meet the standards in this new code. If it's a minor thing, and by minor I mean maybe you just need 10 feet more of a setback on your building, or just a 5% difference in one of the standards, the staff, the city staff is going to be able to grant you that modification if they deem it's worthwhile. That's something different. That's something you can't do today. Today, if you want any kind of modification, you've got to schedule a meeting with the Board of Zoning Appeals. And I know some of you have been to many of those meetings and would love to not have to do that all the time. I'm smiling at Bob in the back of the room there. So we think this is going to help streamline the processes. If it's a really minor change, minor modification, the city staff will be able to do that. Street setbacks is one example I use. Say, if the standard says your building can be set back between 0 and 5 feet, but maybe you want to set it back 15 feet because you want to do a nice little outdoor cafe or something in front of the building. The staff can grant those kind of minor modifications. Okay, on the other hand, if it's what we call a major modification, if it's bigger than 10 feet or more than 5%, then you're going to go before a committee. Right now we're calling it the Form-Based Code Committee. It will be a group of people that will be appointed by the mayor. They will be made up of both design and development professionals, as well as some representatives from the community, some property owners or residents from within the downtown area. Now, they're not going to look at every single case that comes in. Again, they're only going to look at the cases where you need some kind of major modification. And you'll need to, you as the applicant will need to prove one of two things. Either that there's some physical hardship with your property, things like you're on a slope and therefore the setbacks in this code just don't work with the slope you're having to deal with. Maybe the shape of your lot is really strange and it just doesn't quite work. That's one option. Another option, and you can do that today with the Board of Zoning Appeals. One thing that we are adding, though, is we're also allowing you to come in and say, you know, I've got this great idea for something I want to do. It doesn't quite meet your standards, but I think it's going to be really great for the downtown. We're going to allow you to come in and present your case for that. And this committee can look at that. Now, you'll have to show, you know, what your alternative is that you're planning to build. You'll have to prove that you're not going to have any significant negative impacts on the folks next to you or down the street. And it's still going to need to meet the principles in this. You may not have to meet the letter of the standards, but it needs to meet the general intent and principles. And that's something that the Board of Zoning Appeals can't do today. They're very limited in the types of exceptions or variances they can grant. So that's gives you a little more flexibility within reason. Okay, again, I mentioned this Form-Based Code Committee. They're going to be appointed by the mayor. We'll have some design and development professionals and some neighborhood representatives on it. There will be public meetings. They'll probably meet monthly on a certain scheduled day, assuming they have cases. There will be public notice given for each of those meetings. So if you live in a neighborhood and something's happening near you, you'll see a sign going up that this committee is going to be meeting. If you live within 300 feet of the property, you'll get a letter from the city saying this is getting ready to happen. So you will be notified of that. And then finally, say if you're just not happy with the decision of this committee or with the staff and you really feel like you want to appeal their decision, you can take it to the city council. And again, that's the way it works today. You always, as a property owner, have a legal right to ask for an appeal from the city council. Okay, let me switch gears a little bit and talk about the public realm standards. So some of you may not be real familiar with that term, but when we say public realm, we're talking about the streets, we're talking about the sidewalks, we're talking about the river. The river is a public place. We're talking even about the facades of the buildings. Even though you may own the building, it's your private property, the front of that building that faces out toward the street impacts actually impacts that public realm, and so we consider that part of the public realm as well. So some of the things that are really important to making this a more walkable, pedestrian-friendly downtown are included in this section. Things like transparency. By transparency, we mean basically doors and windows that you can see through on the ground floor, so people can see what's going on inside the building, especially if it's a retail store. You know, if you think about it, if you're walking down the sidewalk and all you see is just a big, long, blank wall, it's not very fun to walk past. But if you've got some storefront windows and things that you can look at, it makes for a much more pedestrian-friendly downtown. So that's the type of thing we're talking about here. Pedestrian access. In the downtown, again, we want to promote pedestrian activity. So one of the standards in here is that your primary pedestrian entry needs to face the primary street. Kind of obvious, but it doesn't always happen. We also want you to have entrances every so often. Again, we don't want, long building facades that are hundreds and hundreds of feet long without any kind of opening or anything, because we want to encourage that activity coming in and out of the buildings. So the pedestrian access is included in that. We also included some standards for things like the spacing of street trees along the sidewalk, and we're trying to carefully coordinate this with the city's transportation department and public works department to make sure that what they're doing meshes with these standards. But we want to put it in these standards so a developer coming in knows what's expected of them right up front. One of the things that's a little different that you haven't seen in our current zoning ordinance is minimum building heights. Now we have some maximums where you can't go over a certain height, and it's different depending on where you are. But we're also going to have some minimum building heights. Again, we think it's very important in a downtown where you have some of your highest real estate values in the county to maximize development opportunity. And again, we want to encourage a mix of uses and encourage pedestrian activity. And one of the best ways to do that is to have a lot of things going on and to have a lot of uses taking place. And that's very difficult to do if all you have is single-story buildings lining your primary downtown streets. So throughout this area, other than the residential single-family areas, this really doesn't apply there. But any of your more commercial areas, there's going to be a minimum of 2 stories on new buildings. If you have an existing building, you don't have to suddenly go add another story to your building. But if you're building something new, you would. So that's a little different than what we have today. And this is just an example. You have a photograph of Broad Street and one of some street on Brainerd Road, Lee Highway maybe, out in the suburbs. And yet they're very different. If you're out in the suburbs, you tend to see the one-story buildings set way back from the street. And that's really not urban development. We want to promote urban development in the urban areas. So we want those taller buildings and a mix of uses like you see on the top there. Okay, going forward, this is our tentative schedule. And I say tentative because the dates I have up here, at least the last couple dates, may change, but we think we're pretty close to confirming these. We have 2 more open house events like this one. One is going to be on Tuesday, February 23rd. Same place, same time. We'll be open all day. You can drop in anytime and ask questions. We'll also have one of these brown bag lunch presentations that day at noon. And the topic that day is going to be on building heights and land use. On Thursday, March 3rd, we'll have the third and last open house. Again, same format, but that day the topic of the lunch presentation is going to be on issues we really haven't talked a whole lot about yet. We're going to talk about the standards for parking, for landscaping, for signage, access, site lighting, those sorts of things. So I'd encourage you, if you have any interest, particularly in those topics, to try and come those days. I should also mention that we're videotaping all of these presentations, and we're going to post them on the website the following day. So this presentation today should be on the website tomorrow. So if you want to go back and look at it again, or if you know someone that couldn't come and they want to see it, please encourage them to take a look on the website. Then on or around March 17th, that's a Thursday, in the evening, we're hoping to schedule a special meeting of the Planning Commission. where the only topic they're going to be talking about that evening is this form-based code. Typically, if you go to one of the regular meetings, you've got to listen to all the zoning cases throughout the whole county. And we want to have one just especially for this new code. So that March 17th date is still tentative, although we're pretty close to confirming that.
That'd be the city council.
Yes, and that will be in the city council chambers, not in their usual place up on the county courthouse. We will be watching for an email from us because we will send out emails to everybody, letting you know for sure as soon as we get that confirmed. So if you didn't sign in when you came in, if we don't have your email address, please do give that to us before you leave today. And then our target for actually starting the adoption process is to take this to Planning Commission at their April meeting on April 11th. And that starts at 1 o'clock. It's at the county courthouse. And then hopefully go on to the city council in May. Now, as I said, all that is a little bit tentative. It depends on how the public meetings go. It could end up taking a little bit longer. Even if we get this to city council in May, they may want to chew on it for a couple months. So I can't say for sure when it's going to be officially adopted, but we're hoping certainly by maybe May, June, July at the latest, hopefully no later than that. In the meantime, if you have any questions that maybe you don't get a chance to ask today or we don't get to answer today, feel free to contact us at any time. This is our project website, cha-fbc.com. There's a place on the website where you can type in questions that we will respond to. You can call me directly. My phone number is up here. My email address is there. Send me an email. It may take us a couple days to get back to you, but I promise we will. Keep in mind, this code is still in the draft stage. The staff spent all last month pouring through it and making some suggested changes. But it's still a draft. This is your opportunity as the community to take a look at it. Please, if you see any issues, any problems, if you have any concerns, let us know. We are absolutely open to talking to you about that, and I'm sure we will continue to make some changes until this gets voted on by the city council. Hopefully we're getting close, but already this morning someone sent me an email and said, Carrie, now what does this mean? And as I went back and reread it myself, I thought, well, that's not real clear the way it's written. So I'm sure there's still some little tweaks and things that we need to make. So again, this is just a draft, so please let us know if you have questions or concerns. Okay?
Karen, 2 points on this.
Yes.
Talk about scale variances, residential protected zone.
Oh, I forgot, yes.
And limits on height variances. So everybody knows.
Thank you. I was afraid I would forget that, but I did. Okay. I mentioned earlier when I was talking about process that the staff is going to be able to grant some variances or some exceptions. One place where they will not be able to do that is if you are within 30 feet of a single-family zone. We're calling those protected zones. Again, we're trying to preserve those single-family neighborhoods. If part of your property is within 30 feet of that zone, then the staff will not be able to give you any kind of exception on that area that's within that 30 feet. In that case, you'll have to go on to the committee level. Again, that was a very sensitive issue to a lot of the folks that already live and own property in those neighborhoods, and so we wanted to do something to help with that. Another thing in terms of building height, that was another pretty sensitive issue that we haven't heard a lot of discussion about. The staff will be able to grant some exceptions, very minor exceptions on building height, like 5 feet. If you want to go 5 feet higher on your building, the staff can do that. If you want to go more, say if you want to go another story, you're going to have to go to the committee. If you want to go more than 1 story, then you're going to have to go to city council.
To rezone.
Yes.
To rezone, yeah, or to ask for a new zone within this new code. They may say yes, there may be a perfectly good reason to do that, but again, in order to be sensitive to those single-family neighborhoods, we wanted to make sure if you want to do anything more than 1 story, that was a public process where people could hear about it and come to the meeting if they were concerned about it. Okay? All right, we are done then with the formal part of this presentation. I will be down here for a few more minutes if people have questions. For those of you who maybe need to scoot out, feel free to go ahead and do do that. And also, if you want to stick around for a while, or if you want to ask a question about a specific piece of property, I'd like to invite you to come up to the third floor. The elevator's right over that way. When you get up off the elevator on the third floor, just turn right. And our staff will be up there to help you answer those questions. We've got lots of maps on the walls and computers and books and all kinds of things. But I'll hang around down here for a few minutes in case somebody just doesn't have time to go upstairs and needs to ask a quick question or two. So thank you again for coming today. I hope you can come back again on the 23rd and again on March 3rd, and we'll see you then.